Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Teach, Seek, Repeat. My name is Dylan.
And my name is Hayden.
And this week we're taking a look at our top tips for newly qualified teachers starting up in September.
We're going to reflect on some of the things that we wish we knew earlier in our careers.
And go through some of the things you might not have learned at university. So let's dive straight in. And if you enjoy this episode, leave us a review. It really helps us out. And share it with a friend who might find it useful. Decades ago, in the ether of time, I say decades, 1 decade, don't know if that counts as decades, but 10 years ago, we were newly qualified teachers, back when it was called NQT.
Oh, back in the day.
It's ECT now, obviously, but it's the same thing. And if people are listening to this, they've clicked on this episode, Hayden, because we're going to try and impart some knowledge, or I think more importantly, the reason we want to do this episode is, I thought to myself, what would I have want to have heard in those weeks leading up to my first year teaching my brand new class in September? How did you feel in those few weeks leading up around this time in August, way back when you started teaching? How can you summarize how you felt and how people might be feeling listening to this?
Well, when I felt my head, I had hair for a start. I remember just lusciously, just combing my hair, brushing my hair. Is that what we want to hear about my hair?
Yeah, definitely.
Or just a general feeling?
I think people listening to this exclusively want to hear about your hair.
I thought so, but I'll treat them to some other stuff as well. I remember feeling like a complete imposter, in all honesty. Yeah. I was like, I did a 1-year PGC for a start, and obviously some people have done the 3-year course, all this stuff, and I was thinking, oh, what have they done here? What have I done? Have they seriously let me loose? Do I not is someone not going to hold my hand through this now? And luckily, you find out about mentors and stuff later on, but in that moment, I just remember thinking, I don't know really what I'm doing here. I am just faking it, and I'm very anxious. So I don't know if you had a similar experience. I know some people go in super confident, but I think most people probably feel very anxious about what they're doing.
No, completely. I think it's good to feel anxiety a little bit about it. And the reason why that is a good thing is because I found when people are thinking those things through and saying, oh gosh, am I ready? Do I have enough of this knowledge? I want to make sure I'm doing the best job ever. It's rooted in that idea of they want to be really good at it. They want to throw themselves into it and be the best they can be. So anyone listening to this who is starting in September, it's completely normal to be a bit worried, a little bit nervous, but hopefully alongside that is the excitement that you're going to get your own little class. There's nothing like it. There is nothing like walking in and meeting your brand new class that you've got all year, and you're going to make so many memories with them. And I don't know about you, Hayden, but I vividly remember and will always remember my first class.
Oh, absolutely. They are anchored in my brain. Genuinely. I reckon I could name them all. Do you know what I mean? To that point, it's been 10 years. Yeah. Because it's just something special, isn't it? We have had our own children as well, equally something, a special moment. Or
I don't know,
it's pretty good as well.
Up there, yes.
but genuinely, having your own class. And that feeling, I will just say right now, it's a different time period for different people. That feeling of that imposter syndrome, it does go away. It does go away. It might not be instantly. I reckon in my whole first year, it was still kind of there. But fast forward to 10 years, at some point that went away because I felt much more confident as a teacher. I really felt like I knew what I was talking about. To the point where I wanted to start a podcast with you and talk about the experiences and get to this very moment where we're like, do you know what? I'd actually love to do a whole episode where I talk to almost thinking about myself from 10 years ago and people that are in that position and say, hey, this is stuff I wish I knew then because I feel confident now. Absolutely.
So I think what we should do is to dive into our points that we put together, and hopefully everything we say here will be something that you can put into practice or be thinking about in your first year. Very exciting as a teacher. But I want to start off with something some people might see as quite boring, but I think it's integral, and it is understanding the curriculum. So obviously, I want to start off by saying one of the reasons I felt myself as a bit of an imposter when I started teaching as a primary school teacher was that I obviously didn't know the whole of the curriculum ever. And what I want people to understand is that's normal. And actually, if you pick up a teacher of 5 years teaching or 6 years teaching or even 10 years to a degree, you will still not know the entirety of the curriculum off the back of your hand.
No.
Because you don't need to know everything all of the time immediately when you start. But what I'm saying is really important is as you go through your career, whether it's you're teaching year 3 English or whether it's you're teaching year 5 science, build up your knowledge of the curriculum as you go. Because I worry personally now in a system where we seem to be heading very much towards scheme-led learning, which has its pros and cons. We talked about this in the past, but this idea of here are all the lessons in order for you already, and there's a very, very strict script we go down because we need to ensure everyone's doing the same thing. I worry that means teachers understand the curriculum less and less and less. And I'd say it's vital, if you're going to enter this profession and do well out of it eventually, that you are constantly building up that understanding of what is actually in the curriculum.
Well, what might people be surprised, because I certainly was, and I know you were as well, what might people actually be quite surprised to find out about certain curriculums? For example, like the history curriculum or the geography curriculum. What might people be quite surprised to know?
Well, it's essentially, it was like this for me when I first found it, because obviously I think you spend a lot of time when you're learning to be a teacher. You see a lot of the English curriculum, a lot of the maths curriculum, those core subjects, etc.
Yeah.
The history curriculum for Key Stage 2 is between 2 and 3 sides of A4.
Yeah.
Like, it's not long whatsoever. It's not vast. And it's the kind of thing you can quickly pick up. And I think it's important to do that earlier on in your career. And the reason is because then when you're actually teaching your lessons to your class, if you have at the forefront of your mind, what are the 4 aims of the history curriculum? It's not too much to keep in your head at once, to be honest with you. What it allows you to do is to prioritize.
Yeah.
It allows you to skip past things and still know that actually, if I understand my end goals in this subject, if I know the curriculum because I spent a bit of time just putting the legwork in to start with, I can be more confident in saying, oh, well, actually, it doesn't matter if I cut this lesson short and don't do this task.
Yeah.
And the reason it doesn't matter is because I'm still hitting the aims of the curriculum. That empowers you as a teacher, and it makes you a better teacher, I think, in the long run.
I agree. And you know what? When you're a new teacher, because I fell into this category, I just wanted to do everything right. I just wanted to do it all by the book, exactly right. And I was just absorbing from those around me. I wasn't looking at the curriculum. I wish I did. I wasn't. I was just, another teacher was telling me, oh, we follow this scheme. You got to do these lessons in this one. I was like, cool, brilliant. Just tell me what to do and I'll do that. So when you get to those moments where something changes, you have to be adaptable as a teacher. Things come in all the time and ruin your plans all the time, genuinely, like every week. When that happens, as an NQT, as an ECT, I was really put off by that. And I was like, I don't know what to do now because I was supposed to do this next. If I just had a bit of understanding that maybe some of these elements or even whole lessons in this unit, they weren't actually that necessary to hit in the curriculum. They were just nice. They were just desirable. I would have been able to navigate that way better.
Yeah, 100%. And I think this is where it comes in, not necessarily needing to know all the curriculum all the time, but as part of your legwork in preparing for teaching or whatever unit it is you're coming up to, and I'm thinking more those foundation subjects in the afternoon, just knowing enough more than the children usually gets you by, and that's okay. Yeah. You don't need to know the whole of ancient Egyptian history. No. Of course you don't. You don't need to know the exact ins and outs of every single river in the world when you do a river unit. But what you need to know is what's coming up. You need to know the end goal of where your children are going to get to in that particular topic, I would say. So if you know that as a teacher and you look at the curriculum and you look at your scheme and you make those kind of links first, when you're then delivering the lessons, I think it frees you up more quickly. Yeah. And I think it's not something to kind of sniff at and say, oh, it's okay. Of course it's in the curriculum. It's in this scheme that our school have got. I think what is really good practice, and I'd say to any ECT listening to this, is just spend a little bit of time just looking at the curriculum. Because to be honest with you, often, like we said, it's not long. Couple of sentences maybe. If it's a maths topic, it could literally be a bullet point, and that's all you need to know. But knowing that can free you up, I think, in the long run.
Definitely. And the non-statutory guidance as well. When you just reminded me thinking of maths. When it comes to maths in particular, and I'm sure English is the same, but I regularly reference the maths myself. The non-statutory guidance is also really useful. So don't just look at those first bullet points. Scroll down a bit. It's usually in a box. And who knows, things might change in the next couple of years. But as we're recording right now, I just think, couldn't back that up more. Get your head into the
Can you explain to anyone who might think, what on earth are you talking about? What do we mean by statutory and non-statutory guidance?
So statutory is, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong here. This is the way I've interpreted it.
Well, you are 10 years into teaching, so it's really interesting to see.
But to me, statutory is you have to do this, and non-statutory is just we advise you to do this.
Exactly right.
Right? Yeah. So I very much treat the non-statutory guidance personally. I've always just seen that as, it's just more stuff I just feel like if they're advising me to do it, I'm going to do it, sort of thing. Yeah. I've always found that with non-statutory, so I kind of treat them all as the same. But I know there are two camps of, I actually have to do this stuff. And this stuff I probably should do as well. Yeah.
But it's good to know. Yeah. Because if for whatever reason you're deciding I'm going to cut something out, you should cut out the non-statutory stuff before you're cutting out the statutory stuff. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, you shouldn't be cutting out statutory stuff at all.
No, not whatsoever. But you know what? As an ECT, learning the ropes, you just get to know what's on your curriculum. And don't be worried and stressing out now thinking, I'm an imposter because I don't know the whole of the curriculum ever.
Yeah.
Most teachers don't know the whole of the curriculum ever. There is enough of a line you can get to be good enough at your job.
One last thing on this, we'll go to point 2, is I remember, I don't know if you did anything similar, but when I was in my PGCE training year, I remember obviously being told by someone doing a lecture that I had to know the curriculum, like similar sort of point, but maybe they didn't go into as much detail.
Sure.
And I went home and I sat there and I was making post-it notes on every single element that I thought that I needed to learn and remember about the science curriculum. And I just had this wall of post-it notes. And it was like things from like plant, like name parts of plants, all sorts of stuff. And I just look back now and think, what was I doing? I just didn't need to know this stuff. I didn't even teach some of that content genuinely for like 6 years because I just wasn't in the right year group. I didn't need to do it. I just needed to think about what I've actually got coming up. Maybe I'll just prioritize that knowledge and that understanding. Then I can teach that unit and crack on.
Yeah, and you build it up over time. Simple as that. Someone's listening to this, putting up their post-it note wall.
Hopefully taking them down.
Yeah, taking it down right now and just thinking, do I need to know this right now to be a good teacher? Most of the time with the curriculum, the answer is actually no.
No.
You don't need to know this right now. You will get there. It is a long game because a lot of people say good teachers will have a breadth of knowledge around the whole of the curriculum. And that is still true. I'm not saying that isn't true. Yeah. But what I'm saying is understand where you are in your career. You are early. It's fine. You're called ECT for a reason. Early. It is early on in your career, right? So just accept that and understand that you can still be a fantastic teacher without stressing yourself out.
100%. Move on to number 2, shall we? So number 2 is about mentors. So when you're an ECT, you'll have access to a mentor. When we were NQTs, it was 1 year. We also had access to a mentor. And a mentor is someone in the school. It's another teacher. Generally, it might not be someone in a teaching role. It could be someone higher than that, but generally it's another teacher.
Oh, higher, inflammatory language.
Sorry, someone in the senior, different. Someone more senior. It's different to higher. But it might be, generally it's going to be a teacher, though, someone that's on the ground with you. Yep. And utilize them. You don't have them forever. And obviously you're always going to have a network of people around you can talk to. But when you literally have someone that's called your mentor, use them. And don't just go to them with problems or just little admin-y things of like, how are we supposed to present this? Have real conversations with them. They're just people doing the job as well. And I imagine if they've been selected as mentor, they're quite experienced and they can hopefully answer a lot of your questions. If you're nervous about something, don't feel embarrassed. Just go and talk to them about it. That is their role because you don't have that role in your life forever. So it's worth utilizing. Yeah,
I think for me, when I think about mentors as well, I think as a student, when I had my mentor, and I call myself a student still as an NQT because I was still learning. I know I was a qualified teacher, I had my own class, and we talk about how there's imposter syndrome that you're in charge of 32 kids. Yeah. But we are still learning. Of course we are. We're early on in our career. I kind of took the route of, if my mentor said jump, I said how high. And there is such a fine line to have, and we're going to come on to working rights later on and what we should be expected to do and to understand that kind of thing. But I do think there is a scope to say, as an ECT, as a newly qualified teacher, if you're just starting off in your career, if your mentor suggests you to do something or to try something out or says to you, your behavior management wasn't great, try this, ditch the ego.
Yeah.
Ditch the ego. Take the ego out of your brain and throw it in the bin because you can't have an ego and be ready to learn how to become a better teacher because the odds are that you are obviously not the best teacher in your first ever year of doing the job. Yeah. So ditch the ego. If the NQT mentor or the ECT mentor says to you, try this out because of that, go away and do this because of that. There's a reason I'm saying this. It's because I feel like you've done this. Just do it.
I wish someone had drilled that into me because actually, no, I've got a bit of an ego.
You what?
I know. We're learning this for the first time. And there was definitely, and I had a nice relationship with my mentor, but just thinking about two things, right? Firstly, they weren't even getting paid for that. Right. I wish I kind of respected that a bit more. I don't think I had that respect for the fact that this was someone, they've just had this role chucked on them. They've said yes, probably because either they had no chance to say no.
You've got to tick off teacher standard 8, Hen.
Yeah, oh God,
Wider school responsibilities.
Or they've been gaslighted into thinking that. Yeah. Or they just genuinely thought, yeah, I'll do that because I want to be helpful, right? Yes. But no, they're not getting paid for it. And maybe there's some crazy schools out there that have got the money to do this, but most people are not getting paid to be a mentor. And yeah, I didn't agree with every single thing that ever got told to me, but I wish I'd just listened and tried and implemented it. And at the end of it, I could have still reflected to myself and gone, nah, that didn't work. But I appreciate them taking the time to try and give me some feedback to help me, rather than almost getting my back up because they've possibly suggested that something I'd poured hours and hours into wasn't actually as optimal as I thought it was. So chill on the ego. Remember that they're not actually getting paid. And utilize their guidance whilst you can, even if in the long run you change your mind or style after that. You can still reflect on what they said.
I think the majority of mentors fall into that category of whether or not it's been lumped onto them or not. They definitely fall into that category for me of people who are just obviously trying to help you. And they're allowed to think to themselves, oh gosh, hey, this meeting means I'm going to have to do my marking after, which means I get home an hour later. It's not a slight on you as the professional. It's just them thinking to themselves, oh gosh, I wish I didn't have to do this extra job because I'm a human being and I've got a family at home. Yeah. So just don't take it personally is all I would say. And I think, what would be, the only thing I want to round off this chat about mentors now is, what would be your advice to someone whose mentor isn't necessarily very helpful, isn't necessarily actually doing anything really to support them in any meaningful way? Because I don't necessarily think 100% of the time me saying, your mentor says jump, you say how high and do it. Obviously, it's not going to always work. So just for those small segment listening to this thinking, well, mine's not like that, would you have any advice for them?
It's a tricky one, isn't it? There are some, it raises a wider point that there are some really difficult times in teaching, in any job really, but difficult conversations you have to have sometimes, and difficult situations like this where actually someone else isn't performing in their role that directly impacts you. I think you've got to strike the balance. I think I could easily sit here and say, oh, just go above them, go straight to the head teacher without doing anything, go to the union, go to the governors. Yeah, you can explore going to someone else. I think you can also just have conversations with people and almost like be brave enough to say, I feel like I'm not really getting enough support with this area. Is there anything I can do to help, or anything I can go away and like, can I talk to anyone to put this in place? Because I can see you're really busy. Maybe just trying to strike that balance with addressing the person who you feel like is not doing that mentor role as adequately as you'd hope. And it might be a conversation with someone in SLT or another teacher, or just, someone else in your support network that might be able to give you that support in that way. I don't know if that really answers it or not.
No, it does, because I think sometimes you ask yourself, what can I do in this situation? And it's easy to become kind of almost feeling like a bit of a victim of the system where you're not getting all the support you need. And that absolutely is going to be the case for some people, right? And that is absolutely true, that you're not necessarily going to get all the support that actually someone else might get in a different school. But that is going to happen, is what I'm saying. And I just think, if that is happening to you, what you've said is true. It's like, what can you do then? At least go and try and do something to support yourself. Because at the end of the day, you are a professional now. You're early in your career, but you're a qualified teacher.
Yeah. I guess it raises a bit of a bonus tip, or we haven't written this on our list, but that whole idea of just take responsibility sometimes, take things into your own hands. You'll notice in teaching, and we've worked in quite a few schools, and it's been very much the same with people that write in as well, that we do love to moan. Like we are professional. We do like to moan. We've built a podcast a lot of the time.
120 episodes.
We sit here and moan about things all the time. We try to think of solutions. Yeah. And all I'd say is, like, when you're in that school environment and something isn't going optimally, perfectly your way, which happens all the time.
Play Teach, Seek, Repeat episode on it.
Put Teach, Seek, Repeat on, and then go and sit in the staff room, huff and puff. No, just think, what can I do? Yeah. It is a really good way of doing it. Like, there's so many problems that have been solved over the years, I've found, when rather than just sitting there and getting annoyed about it for the other staff, just go and talk to, like, if it's, SLT have done this thing again. They made this decision. It really impacts this. Oh, isn't it so annoying? Okay, just go and tell them then. Because you know what? They might not even, the chances are they weren't even doing it on purpose, or they didn't even realize it had this impact on you. And by telling them, they just go, oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I didn't really think about that. I'll get so-and-so to look into it next week. Cool. Problem solved.
Yep.
Just, what can you do? Just
don't let it fester.
Think to yourself, what can I do? What do you... Okay, this is going long so far. Keep going, carry on. WY.
No, there's a reason there's no merch shop for Teach, Seek, Repeat. We get the...
WY ... That's it. What you... And that's it.
Listen, don't say you don't get the insights on Teach, Seek, Repeat. Right, next point, learn to spell. No, sorry. Big one for me, huge. Yeah. If I actually think about what had the biggest impact on my ability to teach and what I think made me a better teacher more quickly than anything else, it was going to watch other teachers.
Yeah.
It was going out of my classroom and sitting and watching someone else who's got experience or is better at something than I am, which early in your career, it's okay to say that. Most things is going to be someone better than you at it in the school that you can go and watch them do it.
Yeah.
So the thing that's linked with an ECT with this is I feel like ECTs and newly qualified teachers are in a kind of a unique position where they do get more time out of class. You get that time for your professional development. Now, I do understand that with ECTs, especially with AQTs, you have other things you need to do. So you have more reflections to write, you have your mentor meetings, etc. There's stuff that can fill that time. But all I'm saying is there is nothing more valuable that you can maybe go and fight for and ask for than going to watch other teachers teach. I look back at my career and I feel like my teaching style was, of course, a little bit of my personality, of how I am as a person. Couldn't have changed that. But a big chunk of it was an amalgamation of what I saw other amazing teachers do.
WOT.
Go on, what's that?
Watch other teachers. I think everything we do in this needs to become an acronym
Yeah,
now.
well, and we can just say, what?
What? Watch
Yeah.
other teachers. No,
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I think there's pros and cons. I'll talk about one pro, one con. So one pro is obviously you can pick up pedagogies that you just hadn't been taught before, kind of like what you were saying. You can see teachers put into action things that maybe you have a rough idea about, but to seeing it makes you go, oh yeah, that's a much better way of doing that. Why did I not think of that? That's a really good pro. A con can be, and no one really talks about this, I don't think, is that you can get yourself a bit overwhelmed by watching loads of teachers who are unbelievably good at maybe lots of things or certain elements, and then going away and thinking, cool, so I have to be perfect in every single aspect I've seen, and I'm taking the best aspects from 6 different people, and now I'm thinking to myself, I have to reach that benchmark in each of those areas. You need to check yourself a little bit, I think. I definitely felt that
It's my
pressure.
favourite comment, isn't it? Check yourself.
You just got to check yourself, okay? You got to check yourself. WOT, okay? CY, WOTCY, check yourself.
Yeah, listen, just random letters, okay? It will mean something to someone. But how would you go about then? You're an ECT,
Yeah.
or maybe you're even a mentor of an ECT, and you're talking to them right now. You've got this podcast, they've clicked on this. How would you avoid that? What would be a really simple way of getting rid of that overwhelm of, oh my gosh, I've got in there, I'm looking at 64 different things, I need to do everything really well?
Just focus on one thing.
Exactly.
Just focus on one thing. Like teaching, luckily, can be broken down quite nicely. Like maybe you're just focusing on your behavior management. Maybe you're just focusing on how you deliver certain parts of the geography curriculum. Like it can be as small or as big as you like, but just focus on one thing at a time. It's your career. You've got loads of time to do it.
And this, I think, ties in with what we said about just listening and using your mentor as much as possible. Because what usually happens is the mentors or someone else is involved in your observation. They'll come and watch you teach, and they'll give you feedback. And if you got rid of the ego and you listen to them, I remember very clearly having feedback from my mentor, and they said, right, look, Dylan, your behavior management is great. It seems like you've built up that nicely. The way you use your teaching assistant, it could be better. I feel like they were underutilized. And then what I did was I was given by my mentor, this teacher uses their team really effectively. And the way they use their teaching assistant gets amazing outcomes for the children. And I want you to go and watch how they do that.
Yeah.
Now, when I went there, I went into that classroom with that mindset. And I said, okay, cool. I'm here to watch how this unit works as a team of adults and how the teacher can direct their team and the people in the room to get the best for the kids. If I hadn't had that, I'd have been thinking, oh gosh, look at how they put their hands up to answer a question so beautifully. And look at how they're using the mini whiteboards for a plenary in the middle. And then actually look, oh yeah, the teaching assistant is doing that. That's great. But also at the same time, these kids are stuck and the teacher's helped them in this way. No. There's always going to be 100 things you can do.
Yeah.
But use your feedback from your lesson observations to inform then what you go and actually see. And it's a beautiful cycle, I think, because then once you've done that and you can show you've implemented something, whether or not it works next time, what a good mentor does to an ECT is they say, well done. You gave that a go. Not everything's going to work all the time. I've been a teacher for 10 years. I'll get something wrong. Every single week something goes wrong. That's not what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is the initiative and understanding to see what works and what doesn't, and let's try it yourself.
Yeah. And do you know what? We just all have different styles as well. There also just comes a point where there's maybe even a bar and it's like, and it just doesn't even work or exist for you. Like that teacher, their personality, everything that makes them them, and the relationship that they have with that particular class just means that this particular thing that they're doing that you're looking at, like, wow, it might not even work for you. It just might not even be in your style of teaching. And sometimes the grass is always greener. You just need to accept that we're all different and you can be unique and amazing at the same time. You can have lots of teachers who teach in a really different ways who are equally incredible teachers.
Yeah.
One other thing I want to mention, in this point, it's loosely related, is about your network of teachers, right? It's just this idea that try not to just only look at the teachers in your school around you and think that is it, like this is how education works. I fell into this trap massively, and I wish early in my career I had been exposed to a bigger network of teachers from different schools. Maybe even just going online, like these days we can probably get a lot of that just from Facebook groups.
I was just going to say social media today.
Social media,
it's
like,
a great way to do that.
But I've absolutely fell into the trap of a few things of thinking genuinely some really like toxic practices, now I look back, were just completely normal.
Yeah.
Because I had no reference point other than the people who were also in my school doing these toxic things. And I was like, I wish I knew that years ago and I would have challenged it and not been, wasting my time here or being taken advantage of here. Just try and build a small network of people who work in different schools and talk to each other and say, hey, does your school do this? We've been asked to do this recently. Is that normal? And then, some people love to know, like, oh, when directed hours, you can only do this, or that people will quote things at you where you think, oh, I didn't know that about my job or my contract, So
it's a big, big, big positive from us doing this podcast for years and years is people get in touch and they say, I feel like I finally got someone who understands me or is going through similar things or does things differently.
Yeah.
And this person, people message us all the time saying they're from 1-form entry schools. They're on their own in like year 4. I don't have year 4 teachers. I'm just trying to deliver this curriculum. I think online's a fantastic place to get that kind of network now. There's so many really good accounts online. And also, not to self-plug, but you're already listening this far into the podcast, so thanks for that. This podcast is a place for that. It's a place where I'm hoping educators can come to and say, I'm not the only one who thinks this. I'm not the only one who's being exploited massively. And I'm not the only one who doesn't know my working rights, which is my next point.
Oh, and hang on, before you do that, because I've got another segue. I'm not the only one who leaves a 5-star review because I'm so pleased with the advice and tips I've been hearing so far.
I think you can only really truly understand your working rights if you leave Teach Sleep Repeat a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. I don't know.
Yeah. Weird,
anyway, next point.
Yeah. I wonder what the next point is.
Understanding your working rights.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I think this is really important. You need to understand your rights as a worker going into this job. It is vital because we've all seen the stats. If you're a qualified teacher now and you're starting off in the role, you've seen anything online about how stressful teaching is, how workload is massive, how teachers are burning out, we're leaving at record rates. You and I literally have left the profession. This happens to lots of people who are in education. They do teaching for a while and then they leave. So why is it important for a newly qualified teacher to hear and understand that? Because we get a lot of people who say to us, you're being negative. How are we going to encourage them to join teaching if you're just saying all this stuff? Why do we say it then?
Because otherwise we're just lying. And if you lie, this is what's happening actually. Everyone's being lied to. Everyone's being lied to about what teaching is. They come in, they go, oh, this isn't remotely what I hoped this job was, and they leave after 2 years.
Right.
And we don't want that. So yeah, okay. Oh, is it being negative to point out flaws in a system? Like, there's got to be a line where we can criticize something and be realistic and just say to people, oh, this is with the system currently. Here are things you can do to navigate it. Is that negative?
That's important. It's the next bit after. It's like, why are you being negative? Why are you saying these things? Because I want you to know, guys, I am so glad people listening to this have gone into teaching. It makes me so happy because it's usually people who we should have with our children, teaching them, inspiring them, getting them to be the next generation for our society. It's such an amazing job.
Yeah.
It's so good. And it just winds me up when people say, you're being negative. No, we're talking about the realistic side of teaching and you need to know your working rights. And if you want to, as a teacher, go above and beyond and do your cross countries at the weekend and do your clubs with the kids in the evenings, and you're at that point in your life or your career when you want to do that, I will never say to someone that you shouldn't do that. But what I will say to someone, and what I want people to know starting this job off, is this is what your contract says. This is what you're expected to do. This is what you have to do. And most importantly, this is what you can say no to.
Yeah. And even just going back, I'll come back to the no in a second, but even going back to like when you're running the clubs, just knowing that is above the bar. I know it sounds so simple, but there are so many schools out there that really convince you that, no, that's normal. That's what everyone does. The bar is set there. Understanding your rights is understanding where the bar is. It's understanding that, oh, no, sorry. Don't take advantage of me. I'm doing this because I want to, but I am going above the bar of what is expected of me. And it is absolutely acceptable for my colleagues and for myself when I in that period of my career where actually I can't do these things anymore. It's completely acceptable for me to be underneath this bar or at this bar because that's where my rights are. And I know my job contract really well. So yeah, when we've actually done whole episodes on the job contract. So please, if you haven't been listening for a long time, go back and find our whole episode on understanding your rights and understanding your contract because it's really helpful. But going back to the no thing, I'm super passionate about this. 3 supers. That's how passionate I am.
That's very passionate.
And it's not just, I'm not just going to say, just say no to stuff you don't want to do. What my point really here is that was a terrible sentence. What my point here really is, whatever, can't speak like you. I'm in the club now.
Go on.
I'll just speak in acronyms.
Yeah.
Is that
what?
what teachers do what other teachers do what we do is that you need to learn to prioritize as quick as possible. And by prioritize, I mean understand which jobs are really important and need to get done and which jobs are so low on that list that you might even be able to say, no, I'm not doing that. Or probably, if we're being a good team member here, no, I'm not doing that yet. I'll do this another time, but I don't have time to do it currently because this is my job and this is my contract and this is my rights and this is what's needed. I'm going to say no to this and I'm going to say yes to this because I understand the priorities here. When I was a new teacher, I said yes to every single thing, and every single thing in here was of equal importance in my brain. I just thought, I've been asked to do this thing, so I must do it. And actually, do you know what? That thing that I stressed over at 8 p.m. just didn't need to get done. It almost didn't even need to get done at all, let alone right then.
I'm going to go one further here, and I think it's really important to understand that sometimes the answer is to not do something. And this really winds people up. And I've said this on the podcast before. I've done clips about this online on social media, and I've been harangued even by my own colleagues for possibly suggesting that sometimes as a teacher, when you have a list of jobs to do, some of those jobs do not need to be done. Not yet. Not yet. Yeah, not in a week, not in a month. No. Some of those jobs do not need to be done at all, and that is okay. My display does not need to be updated. You might come along and have a very, very, very convincing argument that tells me why me changing my display might have a positive impact on my children. And I might even agree that me doing that display will have some form of positive impact on the children in the way that you've described to me. But you have to balance your work-life balance, okay? You have to balance your balance. You have to get it right. The link between how much time you put into doing something and how much the children will get out of it. And I think that as an ECT, my advice would be to try and learn that quickly, to try and understand that your time is valuable. And if it takes you 3 hours to do something, which has a tiny negligible percentage effect on a child, even if it's positive, you don't have to do it just because it has a small positive effect. Sometimes the balance is not correct. And sometimes the answer is to not do that thing.
Couldn't agree more. It's like the input-output thought experiment. That's kind of how I use it. The last couple of years of my career, I feel like I got really good at that. It's just thinking, what's the input? What's the output? Does the output remotely justify the input? Because we can't all be perfect. I'm sure, we've said this before. Do you know what you could do as a teacher? You could spend every waking hour of your life, genuinely, you could find something to do that would have some sort of impact onto your class positively. You could. But obviously, we're not going to do that. You could also do absolutely nothing, and that would have a negative impact. There's got to be a line somewhere that we all draw where we say, yeah, do you know what? These inputs, we can justify them because the outputs are really big. But there are some things that, yeah, cool, great idealistic thing. I love that idea. It probably would, like you said, but I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. And this is where knowing your working rights comes in, because this is as close as we have as a universal bar that we can work towards. And that has to be with the knowledge of kind of understanding what your contract literally asks of you. That becomes the bar then. Because if you want to go above and beyond, crack on. The kids get so much out of it. I'm not saying they don't. But if your colleague doesn't, but stays within their contract, or even I'm thinking about you personally now, as an NQT, a newly qualified teacher, an ECT entering the job, I can almost guarantee you that in 10 years' time, your life will be in a completely different situation where you might not be able to do that as much anymore. Yeah. I'm thinking of my own life having my son. I no longer have as much time as I used to. I definitely put less time into those extra things than I did at the start of my career. What I want to say to myself at the start of my career is, that's fine. Don't worry about them. If you want to go above and beyond, it has nothing to do with anyone else other than you. You crack on because you might love it. And I don't want ECTs out there to think that they shouldn't be doing it if they want to. Crack on. But what they shouldn't do is judge other people who are not doing that.
That's what I was going to say. It's so easy to be part of the problem when you are. I think I was part of the problem, genuinely. I think,
still are, really.
I think when I was in my first or second year of teaching, because I was doing all this, because I was living and breathing teaching, I lived at home with my parents. I didn't have a child. I had the most free life you could have, and I just spent all that time doing stuff for teaching. And I really definitely judged other teachers who weren't doing that stuff. I was like, oh, I'm putting the effort in. Come on, guys. Why aren't you doing this? I cringe at that. I'm like, I can't believe that I didn't have the compassion and empathy to understand that not everyone is living the exact same life as me. And I didn't have a grasp of that bar enough, which, just really honing on this point for the fifth time is just, I wish I knew what that bar was. Everyone's working rights. And I wasn't, pushing other people to do that as well.
100%. Right, next one. I love this one because this is a big one, I think, in life in general, is to get over the cringe. GOTC. Gotker. Get over the cringe, baby.
You spent 5 minutes prepping that acronym and you didn't get it wrong.
Because I was probably going to get it wrong. Get over the cringe. I shared something on Instagram recently, and it was a reel of someone saying that everything you want in life is past cringe. And the point was that how many times has someone decided not to do something because they've thought, oh, well, someone will think this is cringy. Someone will think this is cringy if I post this on my Instagram. When I started on Instagram, when I did my first ever story, which was just me talking to the camera, can you imagine the levels of cringe that I felt?
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is kind of matched with ECTs. When I started teaching and the first time I would read a book to the class, I felt awkward.
Yeah. Putting on a silly voice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was cringy.
Yeah, it was.
And the point being, you have to get through that.
Yeah.
You have to get over the cringe. And the way you get over the cringe is by feeling the cringe.
Yeah.
You have to be cringed out because, when you're singing a song that's in front of the class because you're practicing for your school assembly, you might not be a singer. Yeah. You might not be someone who does that in their free time, but you know what? With the kids, modeling how to do it, it's part of your job to do.
And you know what? When you look confident at something, people don't bat an eyelid. It's so funny how the psychology works, isn't it? Yeah. If you're standing at the front singing a song and you're showing the kids through your body language and everything that you're so awkward right now and cringing about singing the song, one, they will notice it and be like, wow, isn't the teacher so cringe right now? And also, two, they will also become a bit like, oh, I don't want to do it then. Because you're like the font of, you're inspiring them. When you just fake it, I find it a bit cringe when I'm singing, but I'll just give it my all. When we're practicing a song for the end of year 6 or whatever, we often do that as like a bit of a ritual of our school. We do a little year 6 leaver song. I just sing it with them, and then they don't bat an eye.
Oh, we heard it, mate. We heard it down in year 4.
Absolutely, and everyone was applauding me.
Yeah, we were doing sound actually, and we thought, look how far sound travels. Jeez, Louise.
He's really going for it, isn't he? That Mr. Stevens. None of the class are even singing. It's just him. He's doing a solo again.
Wait a minute, this is an after-school club. What's going on here? Right, I think there's a few things that come in under this radar of kind of getting over the cringe that I would say to anyone who's just starting out teaching to try and do this as soon as possible in order to normalize it. The first thing on that list is talking to parents. It can be such a huge barrier to people to think, oh my gosh, how can I talk to a parent? I don't have my own child, and I'm giving advice on how someone can help their child when it comes to their education. Just do it. Fake it until you make it. Talk to a parent and just relay what you know and what you've seen, because I can guarantee you that the conversation will be absolutely fine.
Yeah, and it's hard. That's a really hard. I found that's probably one of the hardest things I found. I think. Just finding that confidence, or at least faking that confidence with parents. And it does make a difference, when in the few times, and I have been very lucky, in the few times I've had difficult conversations with parents, I have found those earlier ones where I was really sheepish, they just walked all over me. They could just see right through my nervousness and they just dominated the conversation. It was awkward. That wasn't optimal outcome. And I've seen other teachers, and I learned from them, and I WOT'd, I watched other teachers. I watched other teachers speak to difficult parents and just absolutely just have an air of complete confidence about them. No, I know what I'm talking about. I'm the professional here, and I'm telling you, the parent, I'm informing you of what's happened. And this is information. I'm confident. And those parents, same sort of parents, have just been like, okay, just lapped it up. Because being confident does make a difference. And from that point, I always thought, I have to, even if I don't feel it, I have to come across confident. Because you know what? I am a professional. And actually, ultimately, I do know what I'm talking about. I've trained and I've spent a number of years in this job now. Of course, I have a right to share my opinion with this parent who hasn't necessarily trained and had the same experience of the classroom I have. I should be able to do that.
Arrogant, if you ask me. But another one on that kind of trend there. It's kind of... It is lower down in terms of I think talking to parents is one of the highest anxiety inducing things for a young professional to kind of just get over. But another thing is you're going to make mistakes in your lesson all of the time, and even more so as an ECT. That is going to happen constantly, and part of it is putting your ego in the bin. We'll think of some acronym for that in a minute. I can't work that out right now. But put your ego in the bin and understanding that and just saying, okay, it's part of I'm going to make mistakes. That's fine. But then how you react to that and how you go about that in front of the children, I think is really important. When you make mistakes in front of the children, own it. Yeah, definitely. Be confident and say, oh yeah, I did make a mistake. So the last thing you want to do in front of a group of children where you're trying to encourage them to try things out and get things wrong is, as the teacher, get embarrassed and worried and then get things wrong. Because it's almost like I liken it in a way to when people talk about parenting and they say you're trying to not do the same things that your parents maybe did to you that kind of left an imprint and did something incorrectly, let's just say. Okay, I don't want to do that to my child. Okay, if you still feel awkward about making mistakes for whatever reason, maybe you were in a school system that didn't kind of encourage making mistakes, you got made to feel silly for not getting something right all the time. You have to try and compartmentalize that and not project that onto your class. Yeah. And it's this idea of being professional, of you are the fountain in the classroom. You are the beacon of knowledge. You are the person they go to. And if you're showing signs that you don't like making mistakes or you're embarrassed by it or your ego's been hurt, it's going to, through osmosis, go through to your class. Yeah. So just trying to control that as much as possible I think has a big impact on your class. And as an early teacher, that's something that's hard to do. You have to kind of do more consciously, because eventually it becomes part of your subconscious.
Yeah. It's such a good point. I never really thought about the way it can actually impact the children, the way they deal with the same sort of experience. Yeah. So once you've PYEITB, put your ego in a bin, what you can do, one way I found of dealing with that, thank you for the applause. I hope everyone's applauding at my acronym there. Six letters I have, actually.
How much of what I said did you actually take in?
I was sat there.
Were you sat there working out?
You were waffling on as you do, and I was sat there thinking, P, 6 words. What is it? Put P. Why you're right. No, but in all seriousness, once you've done that, one of the easiest ways you can deal with it for me was just humor. Just show a bit of humility. Just laugh about it with the kids. Did anyone notice what I just did wrong there? Yeah. Oh man, it's funny. I'll tell you what, kids, I'm gonna leave it on the board, because you know what, it's important. Everyone makes mistakes, and if you make a mistake, say, don't worry about it. Okay, we can learn, we can move on from it, and you can just have a bit of fun. And once you've got that up your sleeve, you've done it a few times, like Dylan said, it just becomes second nature, and no one cares anymore. It's not cringy anymore.
I feel like a big part of that transition from early years teacher to kind of more established teacher is how much of what I do become part of my subconscious. So much of what I did at the start of my career was fully in the front of my mind, thinking, I'm choosing to do this because I know it's good practice. I'm writing this detailed plan because I know it's going to help me teach. I am purposely thinking I'm going to fake this voice and not feel cringe because I'm reading this book to this class. I am absolutely thinking of the curriculum every single term I make. I'm doing that at that point, and it might be frustrating to think, why am I doing these reflections for a mentor? Why am I doing these detailed lesson plans? Oh my gosh, it's so annoying. I'm a qualified teacher. Yeah, look, listen, that's true. But what you're doing now with this groundwork is you are taking something from the forefront of your mind that you're thinking consciously of doing to eventually you've done it so much that it becomes second nature, and you become an even better teacher because of it.
I am actually, you bringing that up, you reminded me, I'm so glad that I actually put the time in to doing all those extra things. A lot of people around me were moaning, like other ECTs or NQTs back then, were saying like, oh, why do you have to do all these like full-on written lesson plans? Like, no one else is doing this. None of the other teachers have to do this. And I did it anyway, and I'm really glad I did for that exact reason, because I feel like it did ultimately, in the long game, make me better, because I was so consciously thinking in depth about my lessons and all of the elements that go into the pedagogies of teaching, that when it did get to that year was over, I didn't have to do these written lesson plans anymore. They were in the back of my head at a better level. Do you know what I mean? If I hadn't done them at all, I don't know. I think I benefited from that massively, even though it was a huge time kill it was hard. It was tough doing that on top of the actual teaching. And it's a bit like driving, isn't it? You know, when you learn to drive, you are so consciously thinking about all of the elements of driving, and then once you've been driving for 5 years, you don't think about it. You can drive somewhere and not even remember how you got there. Yeah. You think, oh, that's quite scary. I don't remember turning that corner at all. Yeah.
That's how I do lessons now. I just start a lesson, and go, and I'm at the end.
Like, you just drive home.
Hope you.
That's what you do. He just drives away. Go, I don't know how I got here.
What's going on
here? I got here for lunch.
It's a bit like Severance. I entered the school building and I walked out again. Some learning went on, but no, it's true. It's becoming like autopilot, and it's autopilot for a good reason, because you put the time into doing things right in the first place. Okay, last one that we've got here, and I'm going to mention the B word.
Yes, do not bitch about your other colleagues.
No. Behavior. Okay?
Oh, sorry.
Listen, behavior's huge. Okay, behavior's massive. Not the other B word. We can't solve behavior in this small segment we've got left on the podcast. We've done whole episodes on behavior before. Is behavior getting worse in schools or not? Really worth a listen. We had Grania from Teacher Tap on there and had some data from schools. Very, very insightful and useful. But I want to just give some advice to our ECTs listening here, because my advice on behavior isn't actually what I did at the start of my career. Okay, so I'd say don't do what I did, and I can reflect on it, because I think it is vital to know your school's behavior policy and follow it to a T. Whether or not you agree with it, whether or not you think it's perfect or not, whether or not you think it's bad or damaging, in that moment that you start your teaching, you can have those opinions. And I'm not saying quash them. You'll see in a minute what I'm actually saying. But when you start out, know your school's behavior policy and follow it like everyone else, because you have to be consistent. Okay, so you've come in, you've just done your training, and your training's taught you these really great pedagogies on how to manage behavior in the classroom. And you go to your first school and they're like, hey, we do golden time on Fridays, and we have these behavior charts, and we do stars on the board. Sure. And you don't agree with that? Yeah, listen. You can't agree with everything all of the time. This is something you'll learn in education very quickly. There's not one way of doing things, okay? And you may well correctly and rightly have an issue with something that's in your school. What it's really hard to do in the professional arena is to come in with zero experience, having never done something before, and then have any kind of argument as to why it's bad and doesn't work.
Sure.
Okay. So what you have to do, you just have to do this. Come into a school, take in everything they do. They do behavior charts. You don't like behavior charts. Every single teacher in the school has to do behavior charts. Just do them. You don't like golden time for whatever reason. Okay, cool. But every single teacher in the whole school does this, and it's from the top down. Do golden time for a bit. Do it exactly as it is written, because behavior should be consistent across the school.
Yeah, that's true.
And then once you've done it for a while and you've seen the outcomes, two things can happen. Number one, or actually, it works really well for my kids. I had some reservations, but I've got reservations about lots of things. I can't have everything my way, but it works. Crack on. Secondly, it might not work. You might really notice actually the worries I had about this are coming to fruition. It's having this problem. Brilliant. Go to your line manager. Go to whoever's in charge of behavior. Talk to them about it, because then you have something to lean back on.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying blindly take everything as it is and just be a good citizen, be a good worker, because every single thing about this podcast and my mantra in life is that we shouldn't do something just because.
Yeah.
But we have to understand that the thing that I'm saying we shouldn't do doesn't work. And I think the way you do this as an ECT, my advice would be dive into it as much as you can, 100%. Do it exactly as it's given to you, because then you can have the conversation.
Yeah, then you've got the data to back up. Then you can go and say, this doesn't work, rather than this isn't going to work. I learned that lesson the hard way, which I'll come to in a second. But there's one other thing that I didn't consider for years when I was, same as you. I was like, no, I'm passionate about this thing. I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it my way. Do you know what? There's nothing more annoying than when you get a class and you are trying to implement the behavior policy of the school, and then the class go, no, we didn't do that with our last teacher.
Yeah.
Miss so-and-so or Mr. So-and-so didn't do that. We did this instead. And it's like, oh, okay, so like now it's on me, and now I've got I'm the bad guy now for doing the school policy because the previous teacher decided to do their own thing, and maybe for a very good reason it can be quite annoying. So try not to be that person. But just a real example. Okay, there's something that happened to me a couple of years ago, so still deep into my career. On the same light here of saying no, this isn't the right way to do it. Is our school brought in big books for design technology to share classwork, and I was passionately adamant that was not the right decision. We needed to do something else.
So do you mean was this the big books where it's for evidence to say that as a class we've done this and there's pictures and
exactly
stuff?
that, because we weren't having like individual books for DT.
So a class book for evidence that we've done some DT.
Exactly that. Otherwise, there was no physical evidence that we delivered the lessons, because the teachers are famously known for.
I can think of what your reaction to that would be.
Yeah, I was like, do I seriously need to do this to prove that I didn't just go and have a cup of tea and leave the kids in the class for 30 minutes and do nothing? I have to prove I taught the lesson to the kids. What are you talking about?
What about the thing they build at the end?
Yeah, I know. It meant, and I just thought it was absurd. And we were in an Ofsted window. Everyone was stressed, and we were making decisions. It's fine. But I was adamant, this was a few years ago, that I wasn't going to do that. I was like, no, this is stupid. This is pointless. Like, I'm not going to do it. And I told them, I was like, I'm not doing this. And then when it came to a couple of months later, and I'd kind of sneakily just not done it because I was like, this is pointless. I'm not doing this. I'm wasting my time. I remember speaking to the deputy head, who I had a really nice relationship with, and I could tell he was a bit like, just a bit annoyed and disappointed about this, the fact that I just hadn't done this thing that everyone else had done. And he said to me, he was like, if you'd just done it for 2 months and then come to me and said, look, this doesn't work, I would have taken you seriously. But you didn't even bother trying to do it. So, like, how can you convince me now that this wasn't a good idea in favor of your other idea? They're both just up in the air. And I was really like, but it's not a good idea, is it? Because he's like, how do we know? Like, we made a decision as a school to try it. I at least expect you to have the respect, essentially, just to try it. And if it doesn't work, we'll reflect on it in a few months. And I got really embarrassed and really caught off guard because he was right. I was wrong. I should have just done the thing that the school had said to do for a little while, kept my opinions there, built up the data and evidence of that this isn't the best approach. Here it is, SLT, this really isn't working because of X, Y, Z. Here's the proof. Can we think of it in a different way?
It's a tricky one. It is a tricky one because there are instances where I think it's right to just refuse to do something.
Sure.
And you know what, it could be one of them, what you're describing to me. Okay?
Yeah.
There could be a different argument which says, yeah, but I could have told you about doing it. Why? Okay. So look, I understand what you're saying. And yeah, I am saying dive into behavior policies, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, there are times where you should push back on something straight away. If someone's saying to you, oh, no, guys, you should have just tried for 2 months to come to the cross country every Saturday. How can you possibly say it's bad? It is different. You're right. And that's what I'm saying to our early teachers listening to this. There are certain things where I think you just hold your nose and try it.
Yeah.
And there are certain things where if you know your working rights from earlier.
I completely agree.
You can say no straight away.
The point of my analogy really was more to link it to the point of what you were saying about behavior. That was just another example of where I found having a bit of data to back me up by just doing the school policy for a bit it would have actually benefited me. And there are lots of circumstances in my career where I've just point blank said, no, we're not doing this. Yeah, I'm not doing this.
Yeah, completely. So last thing on behavior then. We've talked about school policy in general, the wider school policy. Sometimes that involves how you actually manage behavior in your classroom. Sometimes it's like a reward system, etc. What I would say to you is to try and build a bit of a toolkit. And this comes again from watching other teachers, seeing what's successful. But there are going to be different ways that you control a class that might be different to next door or the door after or the door after. It'd be quite, I don't know, there's something about every single class doing the exact same thing all of the time, which really rubs me up the wrong way.
Yeah.
You know your children as individuals, you get to know them, and your behavior management might be slightly different. There might be times where a hand raise is enough to get your class quiet. There might be other times at other classes where that doesn't work, and that will depend on who you get in front of you. So be malleable enough, I think, day to day in how you manage your behavior. But if there is a policy that's school wide, follow it as much as you can.
And you know what? There is a middle ground as well, though. If the policy is we give out house points, you don't have to break the policy because you want to have a tub of marbles in your room where they build up. It can just be linked. You can, there are ways you can build things in where it's like, do this thing that I've invented and you get a house point. Like you can just link them in. Or do what I did at the start of my career, which is invent a whole new behavior system called horse points. Do you remember horse points?
I do.
Oh my God.
No. Listen, I'm a newly qualified teacher and I know that horse points are going to have much more of an impact than house points. I changed one letter.
Luckily, I wasn't even a newly qualified teacher. I was training at this point, and I was like, and the university had obviously encouraged me to oh, you need some sort of behavior system. I was like, oh, behavior systems. I've never thought of something so crazy like this.
Why don't you go and completely ruin a school's behavior system? Being a student who says I've got horse points. Can you imagine being a teacher and someone comes in saying, I've got horse points I want to do. I tell them where to go.
I tell you what, for context, people are imagining what on earth, what even was this?
We're explaining it.
I'm explaining it. It was dreadful because I cut out horses, one for each table, and they went across this chart, a bit like gambling. Yeah. You know, like I think back and I think, Christ, what on earth was I doing?
50 quid on red.
And if a table did something good, the horse moved up. Yeah, all the kids are betting which horse is going to get over the end. They weren't really.
How much nonsense is that?
I look back and think, what on earth?
Oh, sorry, no, I'm going to stop my teaching flow because that table is sat nicely. 1 second, let me move my horse.
Everybody nay. Yeah, madness. You do, and you look back, and as an ECT, like Dylan said, don't be cringed by it. Just push through the cringe. You'll do things that you'll look back on.
Unless it's horse points.
Don't do that. But you'll look back in 10 years and you will laugh at a few things, but you'll also have grown as a teacher and become a lot better.
Brilliant. So just to round it all off, directly talking now to anyone listening who is an early careers teacher in ECT, good luck. It is amazing. Dive into it. Enjoy it as much as you can. It is such an unbelievable job. And being with the children and teaching them and helping them and seeing them happy and smile and come into school and want to be in front of you to learn things is the best thing in the world. So hopefully these tips will help you to become a teacher that you want to be more quickly. And I guess that's what I want to say is I wish I could rewind to my first class and just have that moment again, that first week or two even, where I did it for the first time and just say to myself, it'll be okay. Yeah,
definitely. Same here. So I hope these tips have been helpful.
And little bonus, if you wanted even more of us chatting, why wouldn't you? You can tune in on Wednesday because we've got another episode full of your questions you've written in as listeners. Follow us on Instagram at Teach Sleep Repeat Podcast, on TikTok at Teach Sleep Repeat Podcast, or email us at teachsleeprepeatpod@gmail.com. We can't wait to hear from you and we will see you next time.
DFTF, don't forget to follow.